and welcome to the Sheffield Hopcast. This is episode number 7, and we are recording this episode in the offices of Tramlines, just obviously a couple of weeks now to go until Tramlines. Now, it's a slightly different kind of start to the podcast for us. As I'm sure you're aware, in the last couple of days, the news has broke regarding the co-founder and director of Tramlines, Sarah Nulty, who passed away earlier this week at the age of just 36. Alex, who is one of the organisers of Tramlines, is with us tonight. Obviously, I imagine for you guys it's been a really, really hard week, but taking the positives from the amazing work that Sarah did and what a great legacy she leaves behind.
Yeah, it was a real honour to work with her for so long, to work with her on at least 8 festivals, maybe 9. She was amazing. You know, people often after people pass away, everybody says, oh, they were so good. Like, she really was, you know. In this case, it's definitely true. She worked incredibly hard. She had no job was too small. You know, I remember on the field on Sunday, no litter collectors had turned up. So I phoned her, it's about 7:30, what are you doing? I'm collecting rubbish. Like, what? Have you actually been to sleep yet? She's up at the field collecting rubbish, and she could also make really important decisions all the time. She pushed things through. You know, you need people. It's a difficult industry. It's very hard to run a huge festival. There's loads of hurdles. There's lots of knitting together of different interested parties, and she sailed through all of that, and it was brilliant. So I'm looking forward to toasting her today with a beer.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, you know, it's only a couple of weeks until the festival. I suppose for you guys, the biggest kind of tribute that you can do is to press on and make sure it's as big a success as you can. Absolutely,
yeah. That's been what's keeping us going, really. We know 100% the last thing she would want us to do is sit around moping. We've got to deliver the festival, and we've got to do it in her honour. You know, she would want it to be like that, so that's what we'll be doing.
Okay, thank you, Alex. We're going to chat a little bit later on more about Tramlines itself, and you are joining us for the whole podcast, drinking the beer and throwing your opinions in this evening. Obviously, it was a kind of a different way to start the podcast. It felt right to kind of reflect on that, and obviously there is that slightly more kind of sombre feel to the Hopcast this month. But we do have the rest of the team with us. Adam is here. Adam, hello. Beer of the month?
Yeah, I've had a few good beers. I'm going to pick one that's slightly left field, and it's part of the Estonian takeover, which was at the Molen. And I think it's Puhast Brewery. It's spelled Puhaste.
Adam looks at everyone else for help.
I look at you, Jay. I look at you because I was thinking you might have heard of him.
I think your Estonian accent is better than mine.
Alikas. It's 6% IPA. Really drinkable, brilliant for this kind of weather we've been having for the last few weeks. There was also like a session IPA, but I think this just pipped it. So it's
great to see that it was so memorable that you've had to read all that. Adam,
I'm just trying to work out what
with 3 minutes in, and Sean is digging into Adam already.
I promise not.
Every episode, Sean ribs me for my beer choice because I look at him sometimes thinking, just give me a little bit, just give me some.
Fair enough. Sean, what's your beer of the month?
Sure.
I'm going to be boring again. This is Adam's chance to get me back because I'm going back to Scarborough again. So I was in Scarborough a couple of weeks ago. Went in the North Riding Brew Pub, my beloved North Riding Brew Pub, and North Riding Brewery Mosaic Pale was on 4.3%. It was a special edition using the BBC Boston Beer Company prepared hops, and it was just unbelievable. On cask, had a pint, had another pint, and I can still remember it without reading from my phone. So magnificent.
Sean, you would get really envious photos from the top of that cliff.
Oh yeah, it is a lovely.
It seems like you drop on a very, very good weekends when you go up there, and I think you always post a nice beer photo. And I think that could be anywhere in the world, and it's literally on the Yorkshire coast.
It is very beautiful, yeah. Hour and a half from here. It's free as well, everyone can go.
What's your caravan?
No, not just the view.
Now, Laura, this is quite a big moment because you've already forewarned us that it's not just your beer of the month, that it might be your favourite beer ever.
Yeah.
And this is interesting.
So yeah, sorry, I might go on a bit here. So at the beginning of June...
Have you written a speech?
little bit of one. It was that good. I went up to Finefest at Fine Ales in Scotland, which, just a quick side note, absolutely brilliant festival. Just camping, beer, brilliant food, really nice atmosphere. And on the Sunday, which was the final day of the festival, we were all just sat outside our tents. We were all drinking Bloody Marys, actually, because it had been one of those weekends quite a lot of it. And this very nice man who was camped nearby just walked over and went, "Kamaradski?" And we were like, "Pardon? What?" And he went, "Oh, it's a beer, like, have you not tried it?" And we were like, "No." And he gave us this bottle. It's called Kamaradski from Verzet Brewery in Belgium. It's a 12.5% hybrid between a Russian imperial stout and a oud brune, but it's balsamic vinegar barrel aged. And when he gave it us, we were all like, "That's gonna be weird," and it's absolutely amazing. It's so well balanced and vinegary in the best possible way. And so anyway, really enjoyed it there. Kind of Bloody Marys and Kamaradski and some oysters got my day off to a nice start in Scotland. But then last weekend I went to Carnival Brettanomyces in Amsterdam, and we were in this bar called Fooders that's in the south of the city. Really great bar. They've got these big bowls of monkey nuts on the table, and when you've eaten them you just throw the shells on the floor. So it's really like rough and ready sort of bar with 40 keg lines. And I was eating this mountain of cheese, as you do when you're in Amsterdam, and somebody said, "Oh, have you had the vinegar beer?" And I was like, "What?" And it was on tap. And I was like, "Oh my god." And so I had Kamaradski on tap with cheese and this sauce that they like in Amsterdam called appelsloop. That's like, if you imagine Marmite made out of apples. It's that kind of consistency, but it's sweet. And cheese and appelsloop and Kamaradski, and I cried. It was that good.
You're practicing the pronunciation.
So,
There were some good words in there. I didn't understand half of them, but there were some good words in there.
Well, did you honestly throw monkey nut shells on the floor? I bet you kept yours nice and tight.
Oh no, I was revelling in it. I was like, for one time I can enjoy making a mess. So I drank a lot of good beer this month actually, because Carnival Brettanomyces was brilliant. Also had Goes from Oak and Dagger Brewery in North Carolina called Crying Over My Mojito. It was like a limey, minty Goes. It was absolutely delicious.
Sounds
so that's
good.
my honourable mention, and that's the end of my
I was going to
story.
say that you are guaranteed traveller of the month.
You are,
But
yeah.
actually, we might have a dark horse here on the travelling front.
I've had a good beer month. And it's been a slightly bigger gap since we last recorded, which was my fault because I was going on holiday, so we had to do the World Cup edition a little bit early. So I was at the summer beer thing in Manchester at the weekend, which was very good, some great beers there. But it kind of feels like I've got to pick a beer from when I was in New York, because I got round maybe half of the breweries in New York. I was intending to do them all. It's just impossible. It can't be done. There's just so many, and they're so good. So I'm going to pick out a beer that I think I had on the second day that I was there. And kind of, it hit a height that nothing else quite matched. And it's a beer called Torque Wrench by Industrial Arts. It was a kind of New England style IPA, as the vast majority of beers that I had in New York were. And it was lovely. And I think I had some more very lovely beers while I was there. I just can't remember them.
You are terrible at remembering
I am
things.
really bad. I need to start taking photographs of menus or boards or cans and stuff, so I can actually remind
Maybe
myself
wear
what
like a
I've
GoPro.
drunk. Possibly, yeah. I don't think I'd want to watch it back.
Wear a dash cam. Just put on like kind of a 12-hour.
You end up like me
Low
then,
res,
where
yeah.
all your pictures on your phone are literally beer and cats.
Yeah, well, I am going. Yeah, it's taking me back to a picture of when I was in New York that I've got on computer at home, and I had an Industrial Art, so I'm going to check when I get home to see whether it was the same beer.
I think this is like a
Home in-
souped up version of. I think the original beer is called Torque Wrench. This might be called 9 Torque Wrench.
Right.
To represent, it's a higher ABV. I think it was a 9%. I'm assuming it was a 9%.
Yeah, it was one of the
beer.
first beers of the night that we went, so I wouldn't have started on that. Definitely.
The weird thing, I don't know if you found this when you were there in America, is that kind of a session beer there is like 6.5%.
Yeah.
That's the normal strength for.
And if you're
for
not
beer.
specific about the glass size, that is always the biggest
Yeah.
they can throw
Yeah.
at you, which I got caught out with a couple of times.
Yeah, I found myself ordering the bigger sizes because the pricing isn't fair.
Yeah.
So if you have one that's half
Yeah.
the price, you pay like
Yeah, yeah.
2/3 of the
Yeah.
half the size, 2/3 of the cost.
Yeah.
So you just lean towards thinking, well, I'm not getting ripped off, so I'll have a pint of that
Hence
12%
you
beer.
can't remember half of
Hence, I can't remember half of
Still
the
got
time.
to tip them every time as well.
I was going to say, did you tip?
I did-
$1 a drink, I
did-
think.
I did
Yeah.
tip. Yeah, I did tip.
Good.
And I tipped the bars that I liked. I tipped healthily because, my God, you get served so much faster next time you go up.
Yeah.
You really do. You really do. Right then, so episode 7. Normally we have a theme to the beers. This time it's a little bit different because the theme comes from what we're doing with the beers. So we are making this our kind of bar snack episode where we have several tons of various different bar snacks around the table, and it is quite a picture actually. In fact, we should probably take a photograph before we dig into them all. We've got various different kind of nuts, scratchings, corn, beans, all kinds of things, because it's quite a big business now, isn't it? Bar snacks, you get a lot of kind of more market from where things used to be, and it was just a packet of dry roasted this, that and the other. So we thought we would kind of delve into the world of some of the snacks you can get, and how they match with the beers that you're supposed to drink them with. So we've picked beers on the basis of what matches with the snacks.
Hopefully.
So, Adam, you've kind of been in charge of
Yeah.
sorting snacks with a bit of help from Laura as well. So how is this going to work?
So, we've got 4 different beers as usual, which are kind of been dictated, like James said, from what beer snacks we've been given. So, the initial beer, we are looking at Smurfo, which are a local company. I think, Laura, you've dealt with Smurfo before? You've even done a beer with them, haven't you?
Yeah, through Abbeydale Brewery we did a smoked scratching stout with them earlier in the year, which was using the same seasoning that they put on their hickory smoked scratchings. It didn't have any actual pig in there, so it was actually a completely vegan pork scratching themed beer. Which
It took me
was
2 weeks to
amazing.
realise that before I could actually decide to drink it.
But yeah, their stuff's really good. So yeah, we've got a little variety of
Yeah.
their snacks.
So
So
what-
thank you very much to Simon for providing us with
Thank
them.
you.
So what I was thinking, I've been dealing with Sean and I've been looking at my Mark Dredge book, which I've got a beer and food pairing thing. So initially I thought of looking at the hickory smoked pork scratchings from Smurfo, but obviously James is a vegetarian, so I think his option, we're going to go for the buffalo beans, I think.
Buffalo beans
Oh,
look
they're my
good.
favourite.
So I was thinking, you've got your pork, what goes with pork? Apple, do you really get apple beers? No. So I was thinking of something maybe Saison-y or something like quite light to go with that. So I left
So,
Sean
yes.
with that task.
So the instruction was Saison for number 1, and so the beer that we've gone for is a Saison with a summery leaning to it. It's brewed by Numbers from Bermondsey in London. It's one of their new canned series. Number of beer is 0103, that's 01 being their Saison and number 3 being their recipe type, and it is cucumber and juniper. It's 5%. Cucumber and juniper are incredibly summery feel to it. It's a hot steaming night in Sheffield tonight, and so I think the refreshment we'll get from this will be much appreciated.
Looking forward. I've heard quite a few people that have tried this say
Yeah.
it's really good,
Yeah.
but I've not had it yet.
I've
so-
yet to go
Same
for
here.
anything in those new cans.
Right.
I've
I've
only-
had 2 pails which were outstanding, and the first 2 pails were brilliant.
Are you going to tear into these, or have you got some? Have you got
We-
an implement?
We should also perhaps at some point, not necessarily now, but
Oh, yeah.
credit the fact that this is the first of our podcast where we've actually brought our own glass to drink from. Normally glass is provided by the venue,
Yeah.
so we've brought something to represent ourselves.
Adam, however, has brought a flower vase instead.
Mine is actually from the supermarket in Spain, and it's from the Alhambra brewery. So the Alhambra being, the kind of place in Granada, where the Moors kind of, I think is that the far as they got. There's the Alhambra is a big kind of Moorish castle on the hill, and I kind of saw a 6-pack of their. Spain do well. In Spain, you're kind of struggling in the south of Spain for kind of craft beers, and I always try and get something a bit different if I can. They always tend to do like kind of higher ABV version of supermarket beer, and I think this was like a 6% beer, but it came as like 6 bottles with a fancy glass. And I thought it looks very different to any other glass you kind of get. It's like...
It's ridiculous, Adam. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's got a stem, but it's got a very spouty...
Cerveza Alhambra.
Yeah.
It's got Moorish patterns.
Yeah.
See, Adam was looking at me for assistance there, but you should have stepped in for assistance on that one, Alex. Are you a Moorish pattern fan?
Well, yeah, I don't mind a bit of Moorish patterning. It's quite appropriate, beer by numbers, maths.
Yeah.
There's a connection there.
Yeah.
Right, Laura's in charge of snack distribution.
I think it's just grab and go.
These are absolutely huge bags that we've got.
I've got
some. It's smoked buffalo beans and is it pork scratchings as well?
Hickory smoked.
Oh, we're going in for the scratchings
Have you
as
enough
well.
there, James?
I'm going to try.
What's your go-to like general snack from if you're
Chocolate cake.
I can't do anything sweet.
Normally, peanuts I like, but which is boring. But I like chocolate cake with imperial stouts. Yeah. So that's generally that's the only time I generally match food with a drink. I often don't.
The beans are good.
They're quite light on the taste, but they're really like you can kind of breathe them in almost, can't you?
They're the beans. You shouldn't do that with the pork scratchings. You might die.
Breathe the pork
Don't
scratching
inhale a pork scratching.
I'm not inhaling those either.
I'm going to have to defer to you guys for a review on the pork scratchings.
Okay, give me a minute then.
The beans have got a
They're
sort
the
of
best
smokiness,
pork
which I
scratchings.
suppose is rather obvious. A little bit of seasoning and spiciness. What sort of beans are they? Do we know that? Little
Broad
biscuits.
beans.
Broad beans.
They're quite small, though, aren't they? They're like manageable for a broad bean.
They're like a little mini cheddar biscuit sort of consistency.
Yeah.
Aren't
Right, thoughts on the beer?
It's very light smelling.
It's super subtle in its flavourings, isn't
they?
it?
Super summery as well, isn't it? Really lovely.
Yeah, it's
very gentle. I wouldn't have thought it was quite as strong as 5%.
No.
It cuts through the smokiness
It
as
really
well.
does, doesn't it?
Nicely.
I've
Cuts
very
through
well
that
on
bit
the
of
first,
spiciness. You've done very well.
I think that works.
Yeah.
Tick that box.
Yeah.
I don't normally like Saisons, and it's pretty good. My friends keep saying you just haven't had the right one yet. So maybe this is it.
I think
There's a Saison out there for everyone.
It's not very funky, is it? It's more like sort of on the aroma than the taste.
It's not quite as yeasty as a standalone Saison.
I think the cucumber kind of chops
Yeah.
it up.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the
Cucumber
same.
really
I'm
gives it that
not.
freshness.
I'm
Yeah,
not a big
cools it all down.
general Saison fan, especially when they've got that quite heavy sort of cloying
Yeah.
yeastiness. But yeah, the cucumber in this just makes it really
You
nice.
can't
and
really
balanced.
smell the cucumber. You get it when you
Taste it.
Yeah.
What does a cucumber smell of? There's a question.
Just fresh, I think.
Because it's just kind of water, isn't it,
But
cucumber?
I'm a big fan of a freshly cut cucumber. It's a really good
rubbish.
smell to me.
A smell? There's
Well,
no smell to
the
cucumber.
smells are just like when things like what the sea smells like.
Yeah.
But like that ozone, not ozone, but like kind of very. It's hard to distinguish, but it's just like a freshness. I
But
think.
it's funny. But when I first tasted that, my first thought was a swimming pool.
Chlorine.
Yeah.
Just like chlorine.
Tastes like a swimming pool.
It just took me to a
Have
swimming
we all
pool.
lost it a little bit in the heat?
Yeah.
There's some insanity creeping in here.
I felt like near a pool for some reason. Very odd.
This is exactly the kind of thing I want to be drinking in this
Yeah.
heat wave, though.
It's really good.
Mm.
I really like it. This might be this. Maybe it's.
What's your usual go-to beer then, Alex? Just our interest.
Well, I don't. So I have to shout out my beer blog. I'm on a WhatsApp beer group,
Oh, cool.
and I'm like probably the least committed member of it. So it's a big honour for me to be with you guys today. And they're always on about the hype beers, and occasionally I try the hype beers. And so I think I'm more of a like a heathen. That's just day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
That'd be good. And sometimes I might have like one or two big beers a week. I tried the, I don't remember which one it was, the Neo-Human Cannonball.
Yep.
Which was strong, was it 9%?
9.2, yeah.
9.2%. Normally I don't have anything like that, but I really, really like that. So I just find them too boozy sometimes. It was really, really good. But yeah, day-to-day, just, heathen is a good example. Something like that. Just
Nice
things-
session beer.
Yeah, because I can't have a whole 9% beer in an evening. I'll just be done. I often work in the evenings. I've got stuff to do, so just something I can keep working on. But
This
it's
is
got
why I
good
never
flavour.
remember things, because I would just have a 9% beer in the evenings. Last night watching England will testify.
Laura, you can say you couldn't just deny or just did Heathen used to be what Mosaic was?
Yeah, it's still the same beer.
It's just brand. We've gone away from the Mosaic hop.
Yeah, it's still single hop with Mosaic at the moment. The idea behind that was freeing up the beer a little bit, because to keep a beer consistent, you don't necessarily want to keep the recipe exactly the same. And it was a way of future-proofing it, really. If the Mosaic hop in a few years, it might be a lot less fragrant or something like that. We're quite lucky at Abbeydale with supply. We've got really good relationships with the hop farmers, so fingers crossed supply should be all right, but the actual hop itself changes with the seasons and the harvest. So it might be that we need to add something in a few years to boost it, but it is at the moment a single hopped Mosaic beer.
I can remember when I was out and being like me and a few friends in that circle, like one of our favourite beers. I remember it's quite not like a striking, a very colourful like bump clip. I remember thinking, you spotted it, like, yes, got to get a pint of that. But yeah, it's really good. It's quite widely available as well now, which is great.
I think Moonshine was the first ale I had. So I used to go to the Lesker, that was my local, and on a Monday it used to be £1 a pint. And and I used to originally it would be Carlsberg Export because my friend drank that and I thought that was a bit fancy. and then it was like Moonshine. I was like, oh, you had the Moonshine, and that was it. And that was the first one. It's quite a good introduction because it's not super strong.
So £1 a pint on a Monday night, Alex, meant that you started drinking at what time?
Well, we were in school.
£3 night out.
I remember we used to go to school on Tuesday morning, and I don't know how we did it. You'd have drunk. Probably 3 or 4 pints would be plenty for me, and then get home, would go somewhere else, and then get home at 2, 3 in the morning. You'd be there at school at 8 in the morning.
So
Sixth form. Yeah, sixth form. There's that very short little window where you're 18. And
did you fail the A level that you did on a Tuesday morning?
I didn't. I got an A.
Did you? Yeah. Down to Moonshine.
Yeah.
The Lescar is my local now, and
Right.
I can report that they don't do £1 a pint on
No, they don't at all. No. Well, it was in the old days of Duncan. It was like it's still people talking very revered tones about the old landlord Duncan.
It was a very different pub.
It was a
then,
very
isn't
different
it?
pub. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't awash with real ale, but they'd have moonshine on.
Can we do a beer snack one every week? Every month?
Yeah, I guess that's good.
I was thinking I should bring some cheese in my apple. I brought some apple
she's off
back.
again.
I brought some back. It was that good. In a little,
I don't like
fancy
kind of
little
go backwards, but
jar.
you said it was like Marmite, but apple flavoured, like.
Yeah.
Do you mean it looked like Marmite? Or
Yeah, and it's the same kind of consistency and intensity
Just
of
the way
flavour.
thickness.
Okay.
Yeah.
These smoked buffalo
I'll bring
beers
you
are,
some.
are excellent.
Yeah, very good.
I'm preferring those to drink with this beer than the Red
Well,
Hot
we're all
Scotches.
thinking that's a good first match, I think.
Yes.
Like nice light kind of
Yeah,
you
light
did put
beer
it
with
on.
a nice kind of.
I think you got away with that one.
Yes.
Excellent.
Well,
We've got
just you as well. You pick the beer.
And Mark Reg.
Anyway, yeah.
we have a bonus beer as well tonight. So as well as the 4 ones that match to the beer snacks, we get the great privilege of being one of the first people to try this year's Tramlines beer, which brings us on to the subject of Tramlines. So back to Alex. First things first, do you want to tell us a bit about the beer? And you might want Laura's input a little bit on this, because I know, Laura, you kind of helped work on this beer a little bit.
I think Laura should lead on what's in the beer. 'Cause I don't know.
Okay, so it's a session IPA, single hopped with Galaxy. We wanted something which was really nice and light, easily sessionable. So it's 3.8% ABV, so perfect one to drink throughout the day in the sunshine, but with quite a distinct hit from the Galaxy hop. So it's, really, really full of flavour.
Great smell.
It's a vegan-friendly beer as well, which I know was important to the team. To make sure it was just as accessible as possible, really. So it's available in cask, keg and can. The cask has been making its way out for a week or so now, so that's available all around the country, really. It's gone to Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester, all over the place. The cans were only done on Friday, so they are currently less than a week old. so should be tasting
Super
pretty fresh.
It smells really, really good.
And yeah, they're heading out as we speak, so should be available in all good independent Sheffield retailers and beyond. If not already, then very, very soon.
And to be essential.
Eventually, yeah. We'll,
I think as you listen to this, it will probably be on the shelves of.
They're arriving tomorrow, so we'll go on the shelves tomorrow, certainly.
That's quite a is that probably the most modern tasting Tramlines beer I've had, probably. I mean, I don't want to dive about, but I just literally remembered something from a few years ago, which was at the Riverside, and there was four beers up for the Tramlines beer, and it was beer number 1, beer number 2, beer number 4, and it was just like a blind tasting all night, and you just had to decide which one you wanted.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like an invite thing; it was just if you want to come down. Remember, it's always been a local brewery, hasn't it? But probably at the time would have been possibly you guys, possibly the Sheffield Brewery Company, definitely Bradfield, possibly one other one. But they've always been, obviously, because it's a festival for all kind of drinkers. Yeah, it has to be kind of a beer that everyone likes. But that tastes quite modern.
It's a good beer.
Smells beautiful, and it tastes
very nice.
And at the festival, that'll be available in what format? So is it available on keg, on cask,
it's
can?
on keg on the craft beer bar at Tramlines. I think it'll be on cask at some of the fringe venues and in can.
Yeah.
So yes, it's going to be taking over the city.
Laura's doing my job. She actually knows about it.
So Alex, it is barely 2 weeks now until Tramlines. How are all the plans? Is everything coming along?
Generally, it's okay. Because most of the people who do it have worked together for so long, we kind of know what we're doing, and it's quite, in a way, it's a bit of a relief at this point, because I spend for me personally doing the PR, spend all the time trying to get publicity, trying to get media coverage, and now there might be a few things in place still, but my focus shifts to actually the weekend itself and what's going to happen then, and I quite like that, because it's kind of...
In terms of ongoing promotion, or do you switch roles slightly and become more hands-on in the festival?
Well, during the festival we have so we'll invite the media to become accredited. There might be a few people here who end up being accredited, and then if they would like to speak to artists, maybe interview them, they'll submit all of that and we'll collate it all, and so we can then present to the artist's management and say, okay, we've got 3 publications who would like to speak to your artist, is this possible? And we timetable it all in. This is with my colleague Mikkeller who does the PR as well, and there might be other kind of slightly more complicated things. Maybe somebody wants to broadcast part of a set, or to speak to an organiser, or do something a bit different, and a big part for me is the BBC Look North coverage. So we'll always have like a live, for the evening news, we'll have a live broadcast from the festival, and I want that to be as good as possible, so we'll try and bring artists in, and we're looking at the moment about, I think John McClure will be involved, hopefully Stereophonics. They're also doing a feature about people with disabilities and their experience of festivals, so I think they're going to be going around with some visually impaired people as well. So just creating all of that interesting content.
In terms of lineup, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You've got Noel Gallagher, Stereophonics.
That's right.
Craig David.
Yeah.
Clean Bandit.
Yeah.
It's a great lineup. Just talk us through some of the other people that you've got.
You mentioned De La Soul. I'm really looking forward to them. They stepped in for us when Wu-Tang Clan cancelled 2 days before the festival a few years ago.
I remember that, yeah.
That was great. Really happy day.
You might give them a can to thank them.
Yeah.
Wu-Tang can.
Yeah. De La Soul. But they're just like, they're so professional. It's such a good performance. Really looking forward to that. Also, an artist called Stefflon Don. There's a lot of indie, but it's not all indie. I think she's actually from Holland, and London as well. She had a big hit last year. When I was travelling in America, I heard it on the radio constantly. Toddler T's been supporting her as well, so it's good to have her there. There's a band called Universal Tree, who are from Sheffield, Steve Edwards, it's his new project. He's kind of a seasoned Sheffield vocalist and has done lots of different musical projects, and it's really soulful. It's like sort of R&B soulful. He's got a really big kind of soulful voice, and there's not that many new Sheffield R&B soulful bands, so it's nice to have them involved as well. There's loads and loads of acts. It's also been good with the bigger site at Hillsborough. We can do things that because it's the 10th anniversary, we wanted it to be the biggest one ever and sort of the best. And there's lots of things we've wanted to do, but maybe haven't had the space or the resource to do. So there's the Into the Trees area where there's some family events, and there's some cinema stuff going on there, some games. We've got 4 stages plus the cinema. We're here at the Lead Mill right now. They've got a stage, which is a first for us. And in the daytime, they're doing comedy, which I think there's a comedy show happening underneath this right now. It's not. I can't hear any laughter yet. I don't think it's started. But it's that we've got John Shuttleworth there. So as well as like local music represented, we've also got some local comedians as well. And Henning Vane. I have to say that right. Henning Vane.
Yes, seen him on Catsters Countdown. Yeah, so obviously very funny. He's a keen football fan as well, so I'm sure he'll be milking that as a German comedian who's into football. He's got lots of things to talk about there. I remember, and I don't know if there's anyone else at the table that does, but I remember 10 years ago the first Tramlines at Devonshire Green, and you didn't need a ticket or anything like that. No one really knew what it was all about or whether it was going to work or not.
That's right.
10 years on from that, it is pretty astounding just how big Tramlines has become now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's been a real challenge to get to where we are. It was never the intention that the council would just fund it forever. They were very generous at the beginning. They recognised it was a good thing, and it was that weird thing where suddenly lots of things align unexpectedly, and that's maybe what it takes for something like this to happen. The council were working on something called Sheffield Music City, which my dad was involved with. That's kind of how I ended up being involved as well. There was other people looking at doing a big sponsored festival with a sponsor who were going to pay for the whole thing, and suddenly everybody kind of came together and realised they were basically working on the same project, so let's just do it all together. And it was very rushed, and kind of it only worked because everybody was on board. The council, all the venue people, all the organisers were just ready to do whatever it took to make it happen. And nobody thought we'd get here, definitely. And it's really nice to kind of be for Sheffield to have that recognition. Our music scene already has the recognition, but to have a festival that's our own and is up there with the biggest festivals in the UK. Initially I'd be phoning NME and they were like, yeah, okay. They weren't very interested. But now we're very much on the map, and it's easier to book artists. The agents respect us more. Because we've got a heritage and we always look after artists when they come. So yeah, it's not been easy to get here, but it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't supported by everybody in Sheffield.
Yeah, I know a few people that have had a little bit of a whinge this year about the fact that it's moved out to Hillsborough. Yeah. It's not a city centre festival anymore, and that maybe it's kind of lost a bit of its soul because of that. And I imagine you've probably had a few people that have kind of said similar things to you guys. What's your kind of response to
people in Sheffield whinging about stuff? My goodness. I think people like the atmosphere in the city centre. That festival atmosphere where it's all going on. That's definitely still happening. Tramlines has worked with the council and with Sheffield Bid to make sure the fringe is really strong as well. So there's still stages in the city centre, there's still road closures. Effectively, the city centre will be the same as it always is. It is a bit separate, so you won't be able to go between quite so easily. And it is impossible to please everybody, particularly Sheffield. But it was necessary to have that bigger site. We needed to have a bigger site to do what we needed to do. It's that slightly chasing your tail a bit of everybody wants bigger acts, and then bigger acts, you need more capacity, and it's impossible to have something on that scale right in the city centre. But it is really important that it's a city-wide thing, for me personally, that there's things happening everywhere, and we've definitely got that this year. So I think it's important to just keep it for people to see that there is a connection. You know, if it wasn't for the thing happening in Hillsborough, we wouldn't be able to do what's happening in the city centre. And you can choose how you want to get involved and what you want to do.
It's not like it's hard to get in between, is it? It's called Tramlines after all.
Well, exactly,
It's actually the
10
best
minutes tram ride.
There is literally a Hillsborough Park tram stop,
Yeah.
it's actually probably easier to get in between the city centre and the stage than it probably was at Ponderosa.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that was, you'd have to walk up there, really.
Yeah, there's more options, there's buses, there's trams,
Fair enough. It flashed up on my newsfeed the other day that it was 95% of tickets sold.
That's right.
So I'm gauging from that, ticket sales have gone pretty well. But still some available if anyone hasn't got a ticket yet and wants to come along. How do they go about doing that?
Just do it via the website, best way, www.tramlines.org.uk. And you can buy your tickets on there. There are still some weekend tickets left, but I don't expect them to last for very long. So definitely go and do that right now.
Fabulous. So who is going to Tramlines round the table? I will be there.
I'm afraid not. No, I have
It's
never.
working.
As a non-Sheffielder, am I the only non-Sheffielder around the table? Adam, you?
Yeah.
I once went to watch Oasis at Nebworth, and that finished me off really, in terms of outdoor gigs, and so I don't go to many. No, I don't go to many. So unfortunately not. I'm away on holiday as it happens, but.
I've been in some capacity. I've been every year and tried to do what I can. I've got a 2-year-old now, and I think the first it was birthday yesterday. 3-year-old, she was birthday yesterday. Remember the first year they were born? Me and my colleague who had a baby, that we were planning on doing Tramlines.
Brilliant.
It didn't pan out as well we wanted to because they weren't born on when they should have been and stuff. And obviously you always think you're going to do this. Parenting's easy. No, it's not. But I always try to get out in some capacity. Whether it's the fringe stuff, whether it's to the main stage, but hopefully, gotta get down. I'll probably be able to hear it from my house. To be fair,
weekend ticket, James. Who is it? A full weekend ticket.
Well, hopefully it's in Alex's hands, but
cut out.
Press accreditation. But he'll be, having to work all weekend.
Absolutely,
I look forward to his appearance on London.
Representing the Sheffield Hopcast, you can guess what that work.
Yeah.
I like that. Tramlines. Make a note of that one.
Tramlines, I like that as well.
I'll copyright that and then I'll sell it to you.
I've got a question for Alex, if that's all right. And if I was the normal cheeky me, because you must be friend to the stars, Alex. So the normal cheeky me wants to know the biggest pain in the arse you've ever dealt with. I'm not going to ask you that. We have 4.3 million listeners. It will be unfair to reveal this thing. So I'm going to ask you the other question.
Okay.
Is there standout artist? You mentioned Alisola earlier. A standout artist over the years that you think has really gone out of their way to deliver for Tramlines?
I mean, because I never really get to see the performances. I'm always backstage running around with bringing media and stuff. So I judge them on how they are backstage rather than
as communicators and people rather than performers.
Flavor Flav really stands out. For those who don't know, Flavor Flav is the MC with Public Enemy.
All right. Yeah.
Public Enemy are like a heritage. That means they're a bit old. Heritage hip hop act. And very political, and they're like the old school hip hop, the kind of connection with civil rights movement and stuff like that in America. Flavor Flav is a pretty outspoken guy, massive clock medallions and stuff like that. And he's the hype man. His job is to be a bit over the top. He's a bit of a Bez in some respects. And he really got very excited about Sheffield. What happened? Somebody had a T-shirt that he really liked, and it was from Primark. And he said, he's like, I love the T-shirt, man, in the audience. Like, somebody gave me this T-shirt. And so somebody ran off to Primark and bought him the T-shirt and presented it with him backstage. And he was loving it. And then there's some other Sheffield T-shirts that he got. And he was loving all these garms and getting them on. And then he got some lovely photos with Sarah. Some people might have seen he had Sarah and Flavor Flav with their arm around each other. And also the Police. The Police, of course, the Public Enemy spent a lot of their lyrics are about slating the police. Let's be honest.
The police.
It wasn't. Yeah, exactly. And the police were loving it, getting the photos with him, and he was putting their hats on and stuff like that. And that was a really nice experience. So I always remember that one. For beer, there's a beer connection. A band called We're Scientists, who are from LA, I think. And we had a Tramlines Ale, it was an Aberdale one. This is about 4 years ago, I think. They played last year, but they played again before that. when the main stage was on Dev Green, and just before they went on, I'd done all their press with them, and I said, oh, by the way, guys, we've got this Tramlines Ale. And they tried it and they loved it because they were big ale fans. They really, really liked it. And they went up on stage and they gave it a big shout out. And that was like, gave me some brownie points.
Nice.
And they were interested in, they've got something a bit stronger. And there wasn't quite so much on offer back then. And we were at Devonshire Green. So I nipped down to the Dev Cat and I got one of these like petrol can things full of Jaipur. And they'd never tried that either, and they loved it, and they drank it all. And then we just sort of got on the session, and my mum and dad were there, and my dad had been working, and suddenly we were all there, we're scientists, my mum and dad, a few other production-y people, just all...
Getting slaughtered.
Yeah, they were drinking together. I think it was Sunday evening as well, so it's just the work was just starting to taper off. And it's just really nice, it was nice the way they got involved, and they're really enthusiastic about stuff, so... Yeah, they actually did a really good promotional video for us last year, which you could probably find online. It's very funny.
Right, shall we crack open beer tasting number 2? Adam, what are we eating with this?
Which one's this one?
This is the sour.
Sour beer.
Come on, you were excellent.
No, so I was checking which beer. So the next local company we've got is Barmies, which are crafted with beer balm. Do we know anything about beer balm, Laura?
Yes. So essentially, it's sorry, Sean. You
So the reason we're laughing,
Sean
every month Sean brings a bottle opener.
What does that sound like?
How long did it take? It's the worst bottle opener in the world.
No offence,
it's
Wild.
absolutely
Look how beautiful
terrible.
that
It is beautiful.
It's a wild beer one, and it's like basically you open it with the horns.
That's
And
it.
it looks amazing, but
It's so
shit.
impractical.
No, I did that in about 13 seconds. That's a record.
Yeah. Sorry,
Talk
Laura.
about the snack.
Beer balm.
beer balm is essentially kind of like the cakes of yeast that go into the beer.
Brilliant. So basically what Barmies do, which is a company run by Sophie.
The lovely Sophie,
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I really
So they essentially make kind of like a dough, a bread using this beer balm. And then it's rolled with some extra ingredients and an inclusion of... Oh, actually, Abbeydale beer, this one.
Moonshine.
There's been a lot of Abbeydale on this podcast,
moonshine.
and I usually keep it under the radar, but...
Not this month. And what are we? So what are we drinking this with?
The instruction on this one was to go for something sour, which was...
So this one is an olive tapenade with moonshine pale ale, and it's using a black iris beer balm.
So you felt these were a touch on the sweeter side?
They're the sweeter ones of the three, so I've tried them. Sophie very kindly sent us a fresher batch.
Because you ate all the original
Well, we
ones.
were planning on doing this until the World Cup, but it spoiled everything.
So Adam has suggested that the sweetness of these, perhaps going with a sour, he went for a sweet and sour option on this one. So this beer that we're drinking is from de Molen in Holland. It's called Summer of 18, a series of summer beers that they do, Summer of 17 and so on. The original Summer of Love gets a mention. It's the 51st Summer of Love. And a couple of things I've learned from this. One, it's a tangerine sour. I checked the ingredients on the front looking for the word tangerine. Of course it wasn't there. Mineola is a type of tangerine, and that's the tangerine that's gone in there. So this is a 4.8% tangerine Berliner Weiss that hopefully will go nicely with the sweeter offering from the olive Barmies.
Is a Mineola a craft tangerine?
Wow.
It must be a craft tangerine. That'd be the next big thing, then, wouldn't it? The texture of these is amazing.
Yeah.
They're so
Any
crunchy.
snacks up for
Yeah.
that? Yeah, I've got some here.
So someone who can't see this, what do you think they kind of look like? They're almost like, I think they must be rolled out. I think they're almost like it's like a
little love heart.
like a love heart shape squash, and they must be cut
Yeah.
really thinly, so maybe
The
like
roll is a little hard.
5 mil,
Yeah.
then sort of baked. So they're quite crunchy. I would have imagined there'd be more puff pastry to look at on
Yeah.
the picture. So to be quite crunchy.
I love the texture.
I think I really like that
It's quite soft when you get into it.
food makers are starting to use sort of beer byproducts essentially, because obviously there's these Forge Bakehouse across the road from the brewery are doing some experiments with our brewer's yeast as well, It's a totally different species of yeast to baker's yeast, so it can be quite tricky to work with in food production. But I think these are great Forge Bakehouse to do some really exciting things with their breads. I just think it's a really nice example of how good the beer world is at working together, really, and creating more of a community around beer. You know, it's not just the drink anymore, it's so much more that goes alongside it, which is one of the things I really love.
So what do you reckon? Have I done it?
I like the
They do complement the beer, actually, because when I first tasted the beer, I wasn't really getting the tangerine. After a couple of the stacks, the tangerine comes through, and it comes through quite sharply, particularly on like the aftertaste. It's there.
So they're quite
and it's
rich,
really pleasant
in terms of the olive element
I
to
suppose
them.
like
So that,
olives,
again,
you tend to think that you're going to get the brine element to it because, you don't really often. Well, they still have that kind of almost like bitterness, but they are quite sweet, aren't they?
They're really nice. Really, really nice. It reminds me almost like a mince pie.
A mince pie? Yeah, I suppose I can get that.
Well, you put me off now, I hate mince pies.
What kind of crunchy mince pies are you eating, Alex?
No, the flavour.
I know what you mean, like where the filling kind of feels a bit jammy, doesn't it?
That
Like
particular flavour, got sort of a
also
dark fruit sort of element to it. Yeah.
No, you've got it. I'm eating one. Right.
I agree with James as well that I think when I first tried this beer, I wasn't that impressed, to be honest. I think I absolutely love the Molen stouts, but I've not been overwhelmed by many of their pales,
particularly,
to be honest. But actually with these barmies, I think it does really give the beer a bit of a lift.
Rescues it a little bit, and drinking that beer on its own would feel a little bit sort of washed away.
Some beer, Alex, what are you thinking?
It's quite light. It's not. I think it goes well with it. It's not the kind of beer I would drink normally.
It's not miles away from the first beer in terms of its
it's
quite light.
Berliner Weiss, designed to be light, designed to be
I wouldn't
very
say
easy
it's
drinking.
overly sour either.
No,
It's not sour at all, I don't think.
No.
But if you imagine a couple of hours back, if we were being sat outside in the sunshine, it would taste
incredibly
tremendous.
refreshing.
Yeah.
It does say on the front, fruited Berliner Weiss ish. So they're giving themselves a touch of they've given themselves a little bit of leeway.
What do you think about these as a branding? It's full on into it.
There's an almost a kernel element to it, a simplistic element to it.
Simplistic, but I always feel it's a bit hard to focus on.
I could do with my glasses perhaps, but I'll put that down to my eyes rather than their
I'm
label.
not a fan of the font.
Bad font choice. Lots of words, black and white.
I brought some home from Beer Koning in Amsterdam, which is a nice little beer shop, but they had an entire kind of wall of De Molen beers, and it was kind of it was really hard to differentiate one beer from another. But they were all €3, even like 12% imperial stout. So
are they the ones you lean towards?
I take issue with stuff like that because the summer beer thing in Manchester at the weekend was one beer token per beer. So if it was like a 3.5% session beer or a 12%, really imperial stout or something, it would be one beer token. So you naturally think, well, I'm going to get value for money, and you end up drinking like the 8, 9, 10, 11% beers just because you can.
Yeah, Mr. Value tonight. Yeah, New York and the summer beer thing. There's been a value element.
It swings a roundabout, so I think with that. I think like it kind of evens itself out because
you have to be grown up an adult. Don't you
and
start on something easy.
Well, just that, you can you take a light one.
What's this adult you speak of?
We're looking at adult.
I'm trying to think of one that's been the same where you could get like a really high strength one for like.
That one that we went to, and I can't remember which one. Was it the Seba one? That obviously doesn't happen anymore, because that was similar, wasn't it? It was same price, one beer token for each.
Yeah, that's it.
For each beer, so you sometimes make choices for the wrong reasons when it's like that.
But this brewery done a collaboration with someone local at some point recently. That rings a bell.
They're very, very highly respected and work with lots of different breweries. I would imagine probably local. Magic Rock, maybe.
I feel like we've all talked a lot, so it's probably about time that we heard from someone else. Adam, you've been to meet some people that are doing something a bit unusual.
Yep. So today I've been to meet Dan from Heistcraft. And he's been telling me about a charity collaboration brew they've been doing.
I'm Dan Hunt from Heistcraft in Clown.
Hi Dan, so just want to tell us a little bit about Heistcraft and how you're involved in that and what sort of things you've been up to.
Yeah, we started off as a bar and bottle shop in Clown, so sort of in the middle of nowhere. We've been going since April of last year. Since then we've sort of spent the last 12 to 13 months doing collaborations around the country with people like Lost Industry, Northern Monk, Neon Raptor, got one Black Iris next week. So we built our way into sort of the brewing industry. Even though we've been home brewing before, this is our first foray into professional brewing. We have now got a brewery on site, which isn't quite operational yet. We're just waiting for a control panel to be built, and then we're good to go. So in the meantime, we've sort of been gypsy brewing elsewhere and using other people's spare capacity wherever we can get some.
That's really cool. I have actually tried one of your beers. I think it was the New England IPA on Doncaster Station. I found it in there. It was really good.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've been seeing a bit on Twitter, and there's some collaboration that's been happening. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about what's been going off.
Yeah, well, Heist put themselves down for Bangers and Cash, which is it's a charity rally from Sheffield to Monte Carlo supporting Roundabout Charity, who support 16 to 24-year-olds who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. So we put our name down for that, and in sort of the ideas for fundraising, as well as putting on certain events around Sheffield and the surrounding areas, we thought, well, why not brew a beer for it? Plus, I also said to Toby Foster on BBC Radio Sheffield we're going to do it, and he sort of held me to it. So we got a few Sheffield breweries together, some people who wanted to get on board with the idea, and we put this idea over a course of a couple of weeks with this idea that we're going to launch it over Tramlines weekend, where there's a lot of focus around the event as well. So yeah, we've done the brew now. We did it on Friday. We're just hoping it'll all be ready in time for Tramlines.
So who's actually been involved in the brewing process?
So of course there's us, the Sentinel, Lost Industry, Sheffield Brewing Company, and the Brew Foundation as well. So we brewed the beer at Sentinel. They had the biggest kit. Alex was really, really good, and he had some spare space at the time. So yeah, we did the brew down at Sentinel with Alex and his team. So
what sort of beer are we expecting? Is it a secret, or is it all kind of...
It's not secret, no. The plan with the beer, just to put a bit of background on it as well, is that we've got a lot of buyers lined up in Sheffield, so we didn't want to go anything too crazy. So we've gone for a 4.5% sort of session New England IPA. A lot of really, really nice American hops going in there, really, really soft base. But we want to take a load in cans over with us on the rally as well. So we wanted something to be a bit more accessible to everybody, rather than doing like an imperial stout or something like that. Obviously the beer is going to be for the non-drivers and for the evenings, but we wanted to keep it fairly sessionable for everybody.
So I know you mentioned earlier to me that you're involved with some like local artists. Is that person going to be involved in any of the can artwork? Yeah,
I'm actually going to meet him straight after this. So we've got Trick09. He's probably most famous for his David Bowie on Division Street. So we've got him, and we've got two other guys as well who are involved in the can design. So I'm going to go and speak to him about that in just a moment, just to sort of final that down. But Trick09 is our artist for the Bangers and Cash Rally as well, so he's doing our car artwork.
Dan, thanks for your time.
No problem, thank you.
So we are on to beer number 3, which is from a brewery that are celebrating a bit of an anniversary, I believe.
Yeah,
Sean.
25 years. Roosters Brewery up at Knaresborough, not far from Harrogate, and regularly are given lots of respect for being out there as an almost original craft brewer. In terms of the more modern day scene, good users of American hops from a very early day. And so their 25th anniversary this year has been celebrated by them doing collaboration brews with people like Magic Rock and Thornbridge, a couple of American breweries as well. So important and influential people in the industry, giving a nice nod to their 25 years that they've celebrated this year.
Fabulous. And what kind of beer is it?
It's called Howl. It's a special edition of Howl. Howl is a 7.2%. They call it an imperial stout. 7.2% is sort of on the borderline with that, but imperial stout, conditioned on rum and whiskey barrel oak. It's got vanilla pods in there as well, cacao nibs, raspberries, tails of Harrogate, rose lemonade, herbal tea infusion there as well. This one is the Turkish Delight edition. So lots and lots going off.
What are we munching with?
So obviously I've kind of been backward engineered really.
It has, hasn't it?
So this is so we've got another flavour of the Barmies, which is a smoky chipotle. So it's quite spicy. So I looked in my book and it was looking at what spicy kind of snacks we go with. And I think I'm someone who I don't think some people go for like a lagery kind of thing. But I'm not a big fan of like go Indian and lager. I think it kind of sometimes taints the flavour. But the other flavour which the Mark Dredge book I looked at suggesting is something like dark and maybe quite like sweet, so to contrast it. So we've got this one, but we also do have some more of the Smurfo, which is another chili sort of snack to the chili mustard smoked roast corn. So I thought maybe if we've got the extra bag, we could kind of mix it up with two kind of spicy chili ones and go, something spicy and chili mixed with a sweeter stout.
I haven't got a beer.
It's not a bad nod because a lot of big stouts carry chilies in there. A lot of breweries will put for chili stouts. So
I can't believe how much of these.
It's not a bad idea again.
I'm a bit worried about this beer, if I'm honest. It sounded like it had a lot going on.
I must confess, I have had this from you, Sean.
Yeah.
Beer Central.
I'm not a fan of Turkish Delight either. I don't like the smell of that.
The rose is coming through quite strongly.
It smells like washing up liquid.
I didn't find it very Turkish Delighty when it tastes.
Quite spicy.
These corn. These
corn things are brilliant.
They're really spicy, aren't they? Much more spicy. I don't want to kind of have too many before you.
Shit, I poured too many.
We'll take it off you, Sean.
This is, to try and paint the picture, this is a scene of carnage now because everyone's got one handful of one bar snack, another handful of another bar snack, and no one can actually drink their beers.
Oh. The spiciness is like, it really comes late, doesn't it? I like the snack.
I'm not sold on the beer.
It's quite thin.
I'm not sure that those flavours particularly complement each other. It's a bit messy.
Yeah. I'm not sure the chili heat from the corn snacks particularly. I think it goes better with the barmy snack than it does with the extremer heat of the
I'm blaming Sean.
Smurfo corn snack.
I'm blaming Sean.
You need some sweetness, don't you, to go with
I think
it?
it's not as sweet as it maybe suggests.
Yeah.
It does have a slight like floral kind of note on the when you first put it in your mouth. Like I say, we were just looking for something that was like a stouty, maybe sweet, and I thought that does tick boxes, but maybe something more milky might kind of work with it.
I'd like that beer on cask particularly, and try it that way. I'm not sure a can is suiting that. It feels quite thin, and even on the pour. These are extremely kicky on the chili. I'm not convinced there are many drinks that could quite match up. Perhaps a really poppy pale. Yeah,
maybe the Mad Hatter Tzatziki.
Yeah, possibly.
Oh yeah.
Tzatziki.
I love that beer.
Yeah, that cucumber that we had right at the start might have just calmed these down.
Might be a bit left.
Yeah, they're not really complementing each other very well.
I think I'm not a fan of the beer, but that's because I don't like Turkish Delight and I'm not a big rose fan, and it is probably the predominant flavour in there. But the chipotle barmies and the chili corn from Smurfo are both floating my boat quite a lot.
The chili corn is brilliant.
So just to kind of, as we're not kind of happy with the beer selection, maybe. The barmies.
Why don't you just drive a dagger through his heart? I don't know.
Not like that. I'm not saying we're not thinking match. I'm going to suggest maybe if someone picked these
I
up.
don't take anything Adam says very seriously.
So the smoked chipotle is actually got beer barm from Black Iris Brewery.
Yeah.
And it has Harvest Pale Ale from Castle Rock. So maybe if you go for something maybe quite a sessionable pale.
I think that would have been a better match.
But as we've had something maybe in that.
It was a good punt to take over the sweet stout. Yeah. Even if we've had something sweet like Omnipolo Nora or something like that, I don't think they'd have gone well with the heat of the snacks.
They suggest you pair it with a chocolate brownie.
Yeah, alright, yeah.
How do they get the flavour in it?
in the beer.
They just drop some Turkish
natural
delight.
flavourings. Yeah, sometimes they use the actual thing. Natural flavourings generally will be.
Sounds like this is a
The rose
tea bag.
lemonade herbal tea
affair.
fusion, probably.
It just doesn't sit right with everything
Alex,
else.
we once did a collaboration beer with Lost Industry at just the other side of Hillsborough, and it was an imperial brown, and got parallel parking, and we put a cake of parking into the beer. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Cake of parking, full of ginger and lovely goodness. Went in there.
Yeah.
I love this chili corn, but I'm
Some
dying
of
a bit.
it gingery would sound alright with this.
Possibly, yeah.
I quite like the
Maybe
beer.
you have to match it.
There you go. Now we've got a winner on the beer.
I get what you're saying about it not matching with the snacks, but I quite like the beer. I like Turkish delight, and lots of people don't, and I often feel a bit persecuted. So maybe I feel like I need to support this beer.
Maybe there's some beers that just don't need a snack, and maybe that's one that you
And
maybe
some
see
snacks
from-
that don't need a beer.
Exactly, yeah. I think the corn is a lot hot. It's not. It's a nice snack to eat, and I think it would probably would be a better match with
The
ale.
afterkick on
hindsight.
it is dominating.
Yeah, or a lager style, maybe something.
Yeah,
like,
this next beer we're going to have might have gone.
Before we delve into the final beer, it is Meet the Brewer time. We actually heard from Mikkeller a few months ago about his decision to shut down Emmanuel's, who of course recently released their final brews before they shut up shop. You may know that Nick is also a brewery manager at the Sheffield Brewery Company, so we caught up with him to find out a little more about that brewery.
The Sheffield Brewery Company has been going since 2006. It was set up by three guys. Pete, who owns the beautiful building we're sat in now, which is an old Victorian polish works. So in this room, they used to make polishers and pack polishers. And there was Tim, who was a lecturer at the university, who sort of avid home brewer and sort of camera bigwig, as it were. So he sort of became the brewer, and Eddie Manelli, who was the landlord of the Gardener's Rest. And originally Tim and Eddie were looking to put a small brewery in the back of the Gardener's Rest, and Pete overheard them whilst having a pint in there one night, had this space, and says, right, we start the business together. So the Sheffield Brewery has sort of been going sort of since then, really. Then a few years ago, I think just because they wanted to sort of freshen up the business and develop the beers, I got involved because the Sheffield Brewery had a 100-litre kit at the time, which because I was just doing Emmanuel's from home, I sort of struck a deal with them where I would rebrand their business as a sort of. I've got a background in graphic design and marketing. I would rebrand their business in exchange to use this little kit. So we came with that, sort of struck that deal, and then they sort of turned around and said, would you like to be the brewer and the manager? And at first I said no, but the more I thought about it, the more it kind of made sense as a sort of route in. So I sort of proposed, if I did, I'd like to bring Emmanuel's with me, and they sort of accepted that and took it on. And I've been here ever since, and you know I've learnt very quickly, as a lot of people, I guess starting brewers will find out, it's chuffing hard work making beer.
Tell us a bit about the brewery's kind of range of beers.
So historically, it was sort of built on a sort of core range model. I mean, Sheffield Brewery was one of the sort of one of the earlier breweries out of all the ones that we have in Sheffield now. So you had sort of Kellam and Aberdale, and Bradfield only opened like 2 years before Sheffield Brewery did. So it was very much set up in that sort of model of Five Rivers, which is still in existence, which is 3.8% sort of session pale, sort of golden ale bitter. Then you've got Blanco Blonde, which was named after. So they used in the polish factory used to make this stuff called Blanco Polish, which was world renowned in the war for it'd be like a polish for soldiers' boots, and they say, "Oh, get your boots Blanco white." So that sort of became the sort of blonde beer. Then Sheffield Porter, which has won multiple awards, and recently came third in not this year's SEBA regional competition, but the last one. in its category. And we did a beer called Forge Masters for a while, which was a sort of kind of like a contract brew for Forge Masters International. And we re-picked up Seven Hills the year before last. I mean, that used to be a premium bitter, but I sort of reimagined it as a sort of American pale ale. And that's our flagship beer now, actually. You know, I mean, they've all sort of been tweaked over time. So that's the stamp I've sort of brought to it. You know, I've wanted to bring my own character to those beers. So whatever some people might think they know about those beers, if they were to try them, and they've not had them for a while, if they were to try them now, they'd be very different beers than they were in lots of ways. I mean, it's undergone a whole rebrand, which I've done. So you've got your core range, because I think, to be honest, as much as I love all the different beers that are out there in places like Beer Central, the chances are you're only going to buy some of those beers once ever, unless it makes a huge, massive impression on you, like Yellow Belly, for example. You know, every time I see that on Sean's feed, I'm like, yeah, say me, like, it's gone from 1 to 2 to 3 and so on. I can see why it sort of puts a limit on that, but yeah, I guess every brewery I do think needs a core range, because you have those repeat customers, but I think we're also wanting to complement that with doing specialty beers. So we've sort of drawing a lot of influence and inspiration from the polishes that got made here. So we're introducing those sort of seasonals. So there'll be an IPA called Razor Pace, which was a polish they made here. So that's going to be our sort of summer seasonal. Our spring season, which I'm brewing tomorrow, is a beer called Get This and Outdoors, and that always goes down really well. And then we do one called Fresh Start, for sort of aimed at when the students come back in sort of September, the start of the academic year. And then Sheffield Porter is going to move to a Christmas winter seasonal. But in addition to that, we're moving to doing more sort of fun beers, as I call them. Bigger, bolder beers in terms of flavour, ABV. I think that every brewery should embrace that kind of thing, and I think there's a lot. You've got to look at where you're trying to place your beers. You know, like the museum in Orchard Square, for example, is the kind of clientele they have. They want the sort of staple beers that are just going to kind of, the customers are going to come in for, and they're going to drink over and over and over again. Great place like Each Pig and so on like that. They want all these different beers all the time. And some of the feedback we've had from places like that, the Royal Way on Bramall Lane, sort of, is that they really like the fact that Sheffield Brewery offers a good range of those different beers. So we're going to be doing like breakfast stouts, double IPAs, there'll be a hazelnut coffee milk stout sort of Christmas time, a pina colada sort of coconut IPA. We're going to sort of do a cucumber saison summertime. So and just embrace some world beer styles. Rather than just doing like, oh, we've got this special pale ale with these hops and so on. I think they're great, but actually the thing that I personally really like and I'm influenced by is the American model of craft beer. And the tap rooms they have there, they have very distinctive beer styles, and I don't think you get that quite as much over here. But again, I think that's because we go to the other extreme of being like, well, throw every dessert ingredient in a stout under the sun. And don't get me wrong, I love those beers, but I think we are known for having a reputation for sort of producing some sort of good, solid traditional beers. And I think that actually, I want to draw upon that as well and brew some really good, solid, traditional world beer style beers, because I think actually the beers you return to again and again often are, stuff like Goose Island IPA or Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. They're supermarket brands now and all the rest of it, but they're very solid beers because they're very well balanced. And I think you can really... as great as it is throwing waffles into your mash tun and all the rest of it, I don't think people are going to be drinking that kind of beer in 3 or 4 years' time. It comes and goes in fads, but there'll be certain beers that'll just stay around. And
of course, you've got the tap room here as well.
Yeah. So at the moment we have to operate on a temporary events notice because as you came in, you come up that ramp. It used to be a Land Rover repair shop, sort of between being a polish works and that. So I think Pete and his dad put that in like the 80s or something. But it's it doesn't satisfy the governing authorities, and so we're working on getting plans drawn up to get a full premises licence, which will enable us to open more often. So at the moment we're open where peddlers open, basically, and the odd other event, as many as our sort of temporary events notices as that will allow. But we want to open it more regularly on a weekend and put on other events, stuff aimed at home brewers, stuff aimed at beer tastings, ways to educate people on beer. And this space would be fantastic for down here for events. Last October we had RAB, which is a mountaineering clothing line, put on a sort of film screening documentary down here. So we got Pie and Peas from the depot eatery across the road. They had the film screening down here. There was a Cayley band. There was sort of a whiskey bar. The building is just sort of screaming out to have people in it. So we need to make some changes to do that. So we're working towards that. But people love coming in here when we're open.
Thank you to Nick for his time. We are on to our final beer of the night. We've got one more snack left, which is another Barmies.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? Beer talk or snack talk?
So the final Barmies is a cheese and sesame. He's actually got a Portland Porter, which I believe is from Welbeck. Welbeck is where Barmies is based, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And it's got it's got a Black Iris beer as a beer barm. Like I said, I have had this before, but I've looked at sort of strong cheese flavoured things go quite well with a strong kind of IPA or American pale. So I gave that instruction to Sean, and he delivered with.
So we've come up with a beer that should match, but also should generate some discussion for us. It's Beavertown. It's a collaboration that they've done with Mikkeller San Diego over in the States. It is called Murking 9 to 5. I like the name. And it is a wheat IPA, white IPA, 7.9%. Should be very hoppy, nice and fresh from the wheat in there as well. And hopefully will go beautifully with Sophie's cheese and sesame or Barmies.
So we've got to do this then, haven't we? We've got to do Beaver Talk.
Yeah.
Adam and you've already talked about this
because
we have a new project coming soon, which is the Hopcast Half Pint, which is which is our second monthly podcast, which we're going to bring out in the middle of the month. We have already recorded it, but we're just holding on to it for now. So we talked about it a little bit then. So it's kind of only fair, really, that we. I think we should let you guys kind of have your.
You kind of think about it.
Put your views.
We can.
Are you stocking Beavertown beer shop?
For the moment, no. I think there's a difference that should be defined here within the sort of industry at the moment, and the reactions to their disappointing link up with Heineken. One, there are a lot of breweries pulling out of their summer beer extravaganza, and I can see why breweries would do that and fully support them in their decisions in doing so. Other breweries don't generally rely on Beavertown for any of their success or any of their continued future. So slightly different perhaps for pubs and for bars and for retailers and bottle shops who do lean more on Beavertown as a way of being successful in their own right, in their own businesses. So for the moment we haven't taken any sort of immediate stand not to stock their beers. But if they go down the Brewdog route, Camden route, and perhaps change their distribution, then quite naturally they will be eased out of our shop in favour of other independent breweries that are less perhaps stocked and distributed via supermarkets, Wetherspoons or wherever. So that's been our personal stance as a business. I have a small amount of sympathy, not for Beavertown, but for breweries of that size within the craft beer scene, because they either have to, and there are a fair number of breweries that we can all think of now that will face this exact same problem if they continue to develop and succeed as they have over recent years. where do they go, these breweries, when they reach a certain size, where the independent sector can't quite support the breweries' desire for ongoing success, ongoing profits and ongoing domination. So small amount of sympathy that lots of breweries perhaps are going to be faced with exactly the same question over the next 2 to 3 years, and how they obviously approach that will be interesting to see. How do you sell more of your beer when you feel as perhaps that the independent sector has given you all? That's a question I've asked a number of customers actually the last 18 months. How do you sell more without selling out? Has been my little question. And where is the middle ground between the independent sector and supermarkets and Wetherspoons and so on? Where is that middle ground, a safer ground that allows breweries like that, like Cloudwater, Northern Monk, Thornbridge we mentioned earlier on there, the other beer we talked about, where is that safe-ish middle ground that allows them to sell more without appearing to sell out in any particular way? So
crowdfunding's become a big thing for a lot of brewers, hasn't it?
it has, and again, personally, I'm not a massive fan of that. I like businesses to take their own risk rather than allow customers to take the risk on their behalf, depending on how they do it. Northern Monk sold equity as part of their business, and therefore if you're going to do a crowdfunding, I like that way of doing it. If you're selling t-shirts for your birthday and a 6-pack at Christmas for the rest of your life, and no actual ownership of the brewery, then I think that's a different matter. So crowdfunding is one option, but then if the crowdfunding is successful, they triple capacity, double capacity, they brew more beer. Where do they sell all that beer without having to be seen to sell out? So in the States particularly, and Alex had just talked about people queuing up at Russian River when he was over in California. In the States, there's a slightly different model where people like Other Half are selling, I think, up to 95% of their beers are direct. But geographically in the States, I think that works better. People will travel distances, perhaps have less options, particularly if you live in states like Vermont and Maine, have less options on your doorstep. In the UK, you can almost get this type of stuff now almost anywhere. So I can't see anyone turning up to a brewery and buying filling up their boot with 48 cans of a brilliant beer and driving off into the sunset. That happens in the States, but the geographical difference between us and the USA, I don't think quite that fits that model. So it'd be interesting to see how things develop. Buying their own bars, Beavertown are planning on having a string of bars, and I know Northern Monk again plan for bars in big cities. Brewdog have already done that model, but have still had to go then into Tesco's and Morrison's, and so there's still that need to sell more and more beer. I like the alternative. I like people like I've no individual knowledge on this, but people like Colonel seem to flatten things out, and I guess a brewery like that, they're happy with their capacity, they're happy with their lives, they're happy with the profits, they're happy with the beer that they're producing, they're happy that their customers are happy with the beers they're producing, and so tend to cap that off and say we're happy, whereas other breweries perhaps have got a more financial objective.
So before we move on to Laura's views, what do we think of this beer and the match?
I've not tried it yet.
Say it's called Murking 9 to 5. It's
not Murking.
I was a bit surprised that it was
something a
my litmus test. I've told you a few times. If you can see your hand on the other side of the glass, it's not good.
I can read my palm.
I could drink a lot
till I'm 76.
I think it's lovely.
Mikkeller seems to, they're growing in. They're fairly big.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't notice it in the UK as much, but you only have to go across to Copenhagen, and you'll see there's a number of bars just in that city. There's popping up everywhere. They've always been championed by Brewdog. They've almost like took them under wing, I suppose, in a sense for our country. But they've always been fantastic beers. But they started with a bit of a gypsy brewer, didn't they? They were the kind of the one that people knew about without a brewer. But now what's it, San Diego?
That's it. They're built there. So currently getting even more respect for their beers out of San Diego. That seems to be the case.
I like the can.
So we've had an evil twin beer, haven't we, before, which is
the twin brother of
brother of
who are opening or building their brewery in Brooklyn currently, which I'm sure must be opening at some point later this year or early 2019. Other thoughts on Beavertown?
Yeah.
I'm prepared to.
I don't think I've quite made my mind up, to be honest, because I can see. I mean, whether I'm sort of, I'm obviously not in favour of macro buying independent, but I can see exactly where Beavertown are coming from, and I can see a lot of positives from it, if that makes sense. So I'm probably going to say a load of things that don't really match up, but I think the whole situation is the sort of different positives for different groups of people and different negatives for different groups, and it's all very intrinsically linked and it's all very tangled. But I think from a perspective of a publican, Heineken have shown some really aggressive tactics in the pub world, buying up lines and all that kind of thing, and I can see how that's very threatening to to other producers, particularly if it's something like Gamma Ray that's kind of a more credible product going on those lines. I think for Beavertown, I know people who work at Beavertown. They're great, and they've been very emphatic that their business as it is not going to change. I mean, how true it is, I don't know, but I can imagine that their day-to-day role is not going to change, and I think it's really important that we remember that they are there and they are human people, and there's been so much backlash against them that I think has in some situations been made really personal, and I don't agree with that at all. I don't know, it's a funny one. Like with the extravaganza, for me, I think if it was something that I had committed to, knowing that people had paid money to be there, I'd be staying in it for those people. I would have probably made the decision and done the statement of, if we're invited to do anything in future, we're not going to do them for these reasons, but we don't want to let down the people that have already committed to come to this. And also, all the work that's gone into that behind the scenes, that hasn't just gone away because Heineken have come in. They haven't taken away any of that. So I think in terms of the extravaganza, I think it's a real shame to see what's happening, but like Sean said, I can understand why. I don't know, it's a funny one. I think as well,
it's a murky world, isn't it?
I've heard Logan Plant speak, and he's a very, very charismatic individual. And he stood in front of a room full of people. It was at one of the Brewers Lectures events last year, and his opening statement to the room was, "You don't make money in music unless you're Miley Cyrus." And this came from, he was a musician who obviously felt he could make more money from beer, and it was very much about turning his business into a brand and making money from it. But I can remember just listening to him and thinking, your dad's fucking Led Zeppelin, mate. Like, you can't make that. You can't say that. And I think I just found it very odd that he was sort of making that comparison of sort of capitalist music, which, it's just the same as in beer. You've got your big money music bands, and then you've got your indie bands, and you've always got people who are going to support one or the other. And I think it is very similar in beer.
Do bands sell out? You know more about music than I do. Do bands have a perception of selling out?
In the Beer Pop Show, when parallels to the 90s, when indie bands started signing to major labels, and that was kind of viewed as a kind of a musical sellout then. I mean, nowadays music is very bland in terms of the labels and how that all works, so I don't think there's any kind of comparisons now with
the internet's
with,
kind of
with,
spoiled
with,
that
with,
and stuff.
with music, but yeah,
it's an interesting comparison. There's more. It's you can't. What's happened with ale is there's an industry, an independent industry has actually been built and maintained, and that's why people are so passionate to protect it. In music, that isn't really there. There are people doing their own thing independently and maybe sustain a living from it, but it's tiny. I know that craft ale is tiny in comparison to everything that's sold, but it's even tinier still. You can't get anywhere without being signed to a major label, and I think people are more forgiving of bands than they are of beer.
I think
maybe
as well,
because it's so new as well. Like in comparison, the craft beer world is still very much in its infancy, isn't it? And it's not yet kind of found its correct sort of route to be able to sustain what's out there. And we've talked about this before, haven't we? About and I know, sure, me and you have had conversations when I've come in on a Saturday morning and the shop's been quiet about how does there is no one model yet for how someone that makes good beer can then start making it on a bigger scale and then a bigger scale and then a bigger scale and it being sustainable, because at the moment the whole thing is kind of a bit not quite kind of on a cliff edge, but you can see that there will be breweries that vanish in the next couple of years that don't make it through, and there's got to be some way that's found for how breweries can really sort of.
I think some breweries get so big that they become, despite what their owners and founders may think or have as a personal ethos, they get so big that they almost become a runaway train that you have to keep going, and unless there's someone there that just says, bang, this is where we're staying and this is where we're going to live for the next sort of 5 years in terms of this capacity, it is just almost a runaway train, which is awkward for everybody, of course.
I think one of the comparisons that I've found, which doesn't really quite work, but I'm really into whiskey as well, and in the whiskey industry, people like Diageo have absolutely saved the Scottish whiskey industry, and investment from them is seen as such a positive thing, because I mean there's generally more money in whiskey anyway, but it's really interesting that that's sort of a bit of a hero for whiskey, and that a distillery that was gonna just disappear off the face of the earth has been bought up and therefore is able to continue and can grow and all that kind of thing. And I think it does show that it's not, like I said, it's difficult to apply that to beer, but it's something that I think does show that it's not always a bad thing. I think the best thing I've actually read online about the Beavertown situation is Mad Hatter Brewery did a little chain of tweets, which I would really, really recommend reading if you've not come across it. And they're basically comparing beer to sort of communism and saying it's like a fight against the capitalist norm, and that now capitalism is starting to invade in our little bubble of happiness and independence. And I mean, they put it much better than I do, but I would really recommend looking that up.
There's another one I saw which is about Manchester City Football Club, which are quite famously.
Yeah, I've seen some football
quite low league and put a lot of money going into them, and to do how that sits with the Manchester United and how they've kind of. But it's interesting. I think sometimes you like Laura said, you need to put it into sort of something that you can kind of understand. I mean, not everyone's in the brewing industry, not everyone understands how this thing's work, but like not to kind of dwell on it. But I mean, James, I've talked about it when you're here in a couple of weeks' time. But my overview is like, in the end of the day, it's a business, and a business has to grow. Or sustain growth. If you've got lots of little breweries, diluting your pool of money in this like kind of craft industry thing, and you have to kind of make that extra step to stay above the water essentially. I'm not saying they do, but that's you have to look for other things. And if it takes somebody who's got experience in getting you to that next level, and you've still got what you think is creative control, then I'm a bit like Laura. I'm undecided on it, and I'll give them benefit of the doubt until proven differently. And let's just see.
I saw a couple of mentions relating to, and again, it is interesting that people were disgusted that their craft beer brewery had and sold a minority stake to a bigger company, and they were communicating that from their iPads, wearing their branded clothing, and eating in branded restaurants and so on. And so there are some people clearly that take a very independent view on life and live a life which supports independence. I'm a beneficiary of that as a business. But then there are others that want independent brewery, but the rest of their life is multinational. It's multi-universal.
That's what Jim did actually about I think it was like a Star Wars reference. Some guy slagged it off and he's like, I suppose
Yeah.
When George Lucas sold it to
Yeah,
Disney.
yeah.
Like, this guy's Twitter thing was all like...
Yeah, I think I
think-
saw
I
that.
think
It's like,
that's-
so why is it different?
My kind of final thing I think I want to say is that I think trying to look on the positives of it will mean that Beavertown beer becomes more accessible. It'll be more prominent. People who don't necessarily, the craft beer world is small at the end of the day, and the people who really give a shit about this aren't who Beavertown are aiming at anymore moving forward, especially for their core range. I think for the things like the Tempest Project, they'll still stay pretty exclusive, and it will price the masses out of the market. But I think at the end of the day, if this is going to be available in every supermarket, I know so many people who will go, they know I work in beer, they know I'm interested in it, they'll be like, oh, I had a Dead Pony Club or Punk IPA or something like that. I bought it in Asda. It was amazing. Like, where can I get something else? And that's kind of their gateway. If Gamma Ray and Neck Oil can become gateway beers to people who think, where else can I get that? They'll ask somebody who knows about beer, who will say, go to Beer Central, go to you, spend a bit more money on it, go somewhere independent. That is always going to be the heart of what we're going to promote. And if this can open up more people's eyes to it, looking at the wider, bigger picture, it could be a good thing. And I
would imagine there are very few people that didn't start their journey buying beer from a supermarket. I used to buy Badger Golden Glory and Golden Pippin from Copper Dragon. So that's almost the entry point. So for a business like ours, we're the next step on. So we love the fact that supermarkets have broadened their range of beers, because that starts more people on a journey towards us as a business and towards breweries like Abbeydale and so on.
It depends what you value more. Do you value good beer, or do you value the people who you're buying the beer from being independent?
It's a real balancing act, isn't it? One point that I made on the thing that me and Adam recorded was, if it means at some point or another we all have to go in a crap pub, it happens, that you find yourself having to go in a rubbish pub to meet someone or to do, for whatever reason. If it means that there are rubbish pubs that start selling at least one good beer, then that will make that whole process a lot less painful. Because there's genuinely pubs that I go in now, and maybe football away days are probably a good example of where you might end up being forced by the police into a certain pub which is just crap. I think your best option is probably Guinness.
You've just created a new podcast. Don't spoil your beer you're going to bring. And one of our podcasts should be our escape route beer. If we're in a pub, if we're in a pub. And we have no other option, what is our get-out beer that we would go to?
It's like, what's the least shit beer? What is it's not on sale?
I wonder if there will come a point where, at the minute, every pub will say they have to have a lager line, because if you get a group of 12 people and they all want beer but one of them wants lager and you've got no lager on, they will all leave. At what point is the lager drinker going to be replaced by the craft beer drinker?
Yeah, it's already happening.
They're already a meme, and so I was like, but in all fairness, I think that this is in no way offensive. If you were to give Heathen to a load of people who think they're big lager drinkers, who would, a few pints in, I'm sure they would thoroughly enjoy that beer. I think there's a lot of it's mind over matter. It's what you see, and that's a massive world of conversation. But
Neck Oil would be a really good crossover beer. There will be people, if Neck Oil becomes more available
in London particularly, they just can't keep up with it.
It will introduce them into the world of good beer just from that one, because it does pack a great flavour.
I'll give a shout out to the Wisewood in my local, who got took over a few years ago, and it went from an absolute, literally nothing pub to some people putting some money into it, and it's took money to put into it, and they've got a good kitchen, and they've got a good range of, a solid range of cask beers, including an Abbeydale beer and a Bradfield beer, but also have a keg line, and basically they have Neck Oil on permanently, and it's at £3.80 a pint, and it's on permanently, and they took off Guinness to put on a different stout.
Yeah.
They were selling blooming. When they first started, they were selling Cocoa Wonderland on keg for £3.50 a pint. That's nearly 7%. When that stopped being available, they switched it to St Petersburg, And I'm like, you can't offer 7 and 8% beers as the your
Staple.
stouts. It's now sensibly.
It's like being in America.
It's sensibly moved to the blackout stout.
Just out of interest, I know one landlord in Sheffield whose pub has switched from punch to Heineken, and he is absolutely adoring the freedom he's been given to pretty much stop what he wants.
Oh, really?
It's a true story.
Interesting.
A totally different world.
It's as a DJ, which is one of the things I do. It's even harder to get a decent pint in a nightclub.
Yeah.
If you think,
Nightclubs are
What you get that beer
kind of
then?
red stripe.
Alex, come on, what is it?
well, okay, when you start,
Is it Desperado?
your rider that as a DJ is like as a not a particularly high level DJ in my industry, it's always red stripe. It's always warm. I mean, at the university, I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't know which university it is. It's always like the old. It's not even just red stripe. It's the red stripe that they didn't sell last year, or maybe 2 years ago. And it's warm and it's just awful. And that's the norm. You know, for years I've done this for 16 years, and you get a kind of red stripe, you get a kind of you might get a Stella or something. It's just it's horrifying. I remember coming and there's a John Smith's on. And you order it, and nobody's poured it for like 2 weeks, and and the lines, and you're trying to explain this, and it's like, why bother? But now, I mean, I went to London for a gig a couple of weeks ago, a club called Scala in London. Scala, yeah, and they had some punk IPAs on, and okay, it's not amazing, but it was enough. You know, it kept me going, and it meant I didn't have to drink a Carlsberg or whatever, and I was happy. And that's definitely progress.
Yeah.
So for all the DJs out there, we're
Cool. Would you get away? Do you take that much equipment that a cooler box with cans in just wouldn't be an option?
Well, the record box can hide a multitude of sins.
Yeah.
But the problem is now that you don't have vinyl so much. So they're like, what have you got that for? It's now starting to look very suspicious.
You're not plugging an iPod straight in.
No, exactly.
I've
Yeah.
seen a bit.
No, I've done a bit. I had my first ever Cloudwater, I think, was a couple of years ago, and I was DJing. I brought it with me. And I wasn't fully able to appreciate the nuances of it, but
that was your best ever set.
And that was in the O2 Academy, which aren't famed for their ale selection.
No, fair enough. Interesting discussion. We've got 3 votes that we have to cast tonight. So as well as favourite beer of the night, we have to vote for favourite bar snack of the night, and we have to vote for, and you can't vote for yourself, favourite glassware.
Yeah, should we just represent our glassware very quickly? Mine is a little third glass from Other Half in New York. I wanted a glass. I'd got loads of cans and things, so I took a very tiny little glass.
It is a thimble, isn't it?
So it didn't smash on my way back. But it's got a pretty pattern on it.
Yeah.
So.
Mine is do you call it a tulip design glass? Which is literally from the weekend summer beer thing in Manchester, because it was obviously the last glass that I put on my shelf, and therefore the first one that I picked up in a rush when I was leaving the house a couple of hours back.
I've brought, after a disastrous week at home of smashing lots of glasses, I've brought, again like Sean, it's third brimful, and it's a little tiny Craftmaster, and it's super cute. It's unbranded. I usually, being completely honest, drink gin in it, but it's worked very nicely for beer for me tonight as well.
I've done some of those for their barrel store over in Manchester. You can get those just branded up like that. They're proving very popular, I think.
Adam's obviously already
We've talked about mine in massive.
Just all it's missing is a bunch of daffs.
I'm interested in Alex's.
Come on, Alex.
This is it's a Whitbread Pale Ale branded glass.
It's an easy winner, Alex.
I took it from my granny's house. It used to belong to my granddad, and he came to Sheffield because he ran one of Whitbread's breweries here. He was a brewer. He even wrote books about brewing as well. One of which...
What's his name?
He was called... his surname was Monkton, and he was called Tony, but I think his real name was Harold. So he was
Harold Monkton.
H.A. Monkton. And you can find they're expensive.
Yeah.
We've got a load of his books in storage. I looked on Amazon the other day. It's selling for £100.
Right.
History.
How many got?
I've got a few. Maybe we can get them on stock.
Glasses. Shush.
But it's very. I don't know when this was made, but it's faring well. You know, I've had it for at least 10 years, and he used it for at least 10 years.
What was it? Circa 1980.
It must be, yeah. It must be. But I don't know what they put this on with. It.
Should we do a quick vote on favourite glass?
By appointment as well.
I might have got a better one as a prize.
So you've got a prize.
I've got a prize. Yeah.
Favourite glass for me is very, very easy. H.A. Monkton.
I'm so tall.
It's beautiful.
Mine, big. I'm drawn to the classic kind of, and I nearly brought like an old Tuborg one from a long, long time ago from Copenhagen. I really, really got jealous when I went to Bar Stewards and saw that they're the little mini craft masters from the Northern Monk Festival. What was that called? Hop City, yeah. And I was super jealous about that. Yours is an easy one, James. It's just pretty generic. Just to widen it out, I'm going to go for Laura's because I really want one of those.
He's going to try and take that home with him, Laura.
No, I just want one of those.
Looks like he's going to try and take that.
I'm jealous of it.
Laura, I have to ask you a question to decide who I'm going to vote for. Did you buy that or did you acquire that?
I was given this at a trade conference because I got really excited about how cute they were.
It's good, aren't they?
Rastal, who make them, who are a German glass producer, and these were like their new thing for like. I just think it's hilarious that it's called a Craftmaster, and I just thought so it gave me one because I was
so excited. It shows the fingerprints.
I don't know. That's a pork scratchy dust.
Alex's.
On there.
Oh, is it? That is craft. That is craft.
Close. Anyway, one each.
Okay. Well, I was going to give you a bonus point if you'd have stolen it.
No, I didn't. I was given it.
So, taking that into consideration, I am going to vote for Alex because he's our guest tonight.
I'm getting the guest.
Alex, what are you going for?
I'm going for the Moorish one.
He is. Yes, he is.
Hands down. I love it. You know, I'm interested in how they got it on there. I like the Moorish.
It's unusual, isn't it?
I like the patterns. I like the numbers.
That's probably. I'm going to say that's yours is definitely the most expensive glass.
Oh, it came free with 6 bottles of.
But to produce,
it's intricate, isn't it?
Definitely.
You could drop that on the floor a few times; it wouldn't smash.
Let's not try. I don't drink from it though.
Oh, I can see why.
So
you've got a bunch of gaffs in there.
Go.
I've already voted.
So we've got 2 votes for Alex. We've got 1 vote for Adam and 1 vote for Laura.
Who's left?
Me. I haven't voted.
Yeah, voting for your own.
I really like that Sean's also gone for the 3rd glass. I think that's nice. But for the story behind it, you know how much I love a story, Sean. I've got to go for Alex's.
Thank you.
That's at least my prize.
It was the story.
We have a
You have a prize.
Cheers.
I'd like to taste the Whitbread Pale Ale now.
I nearly brought
that was
I
straight.
don't think it'll age very well.
I'd love to taste it.
We joked about the Teco glass. I don't have 2, I have 1. I'm lying.
I have 4.
4. And then I looked through my thing, and when I moved house about 3 years ago, I taped up a box and all my favourite glasses in it, including about 1,000 Sunfest ones, which is the Imperial Festival this weekend. And I gave it to my friend to take across the road to a van, and the bottom fell out. And I smashed a shitload of my favourite glasses. But I've got a few of these ones, so I'm quite happy to give this as a prize. So in 2012, I was 30, and I had a party at the Fat Cat, and my wife called it Adfest.
Wow.
Personalised branded glass.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And I've got a few of those, and that is stayed like that, has been washed.
Is that a woolly hat on there?
Right,
Is that your hair?
You've got the power of words, Sean. Give us a description of.
It's a straight. It's not straight sided. It's straight sided pint glass, isn't it? It's nice and thick.
Oh, it's good. I
can see why this one didn't smash. It's got a rather cheap looking sticker on there.
But how old is that? That's 6 years old.
2012, an amazing year for the UK with the Olympics and so on. Adfest.
It's very appropriate. Thank you very much.
My face on it.
Congratulations.
And as Alex Deadman, I can make it work. I just need to grow the goatee and the beard. Just give me a few years, I think. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations. Right, we've got to pick favourite beer and favourite beer snack. Adam, let's come to you first.
Beer. Can we include the Aberdale one?
Yeah.
I want to go for the Aberdale one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Tramlines.
Yeah, I think it's a really great beer. It's like I think everyone's gonna love that beer. It's a little bit. It's a little bit more modern, and I think that like people are gonna more people are gonna try it, and it's gonna push people to try maybe some other beers that are like in that vein.
Our favourite beer, bar snack?
Bar snack, I am gonna go for the smoky chipotle bars.
Okay. Were they the super spicy ones?
No,
they went with the super spicy.
But I'm not. Go on, everyone else.
Okay, fair enough. Sean?
Beer of the night is the Brew by Numbers 0103 Saison. Very unlike the Cucumber and Juniper. I thought it was excellent and was the best beer that went with our snack matchup. My favourite snack of the night is a barmy, and it's the cheese and sesame using Welbeck Portland Black. Beautiful.
Fair enough. Alex?
I'm not sure if I'm being disloyal here, but I'm going
You
to...
are.
I am being disloyal.
You can't pick it up. You
can't pick, exactly.
No,
it would be crass to pick
You
the
can't pick it
Tramlines.
either, Laura.
But I do really like it. I'm going to go with Saison as well, because it's the first one that I think I've actually enjoyed.
Fair enough. And what about snack-wise?
Oh, it's tough. I definitely really like the hickory smoked pork scratchers, but I didn't know what balms were. It's been like a whole world of discovery for me. So I think I'll have to go with those, and I'm going to go with the olive one, Stepagnon.
All right, the first one. Yeah. Laura?
Beer wise, I'm going to perhaps controversially go for the Beavertown.
Okay.
I just thought it was 7.9%, and it's so easy to drink. I just thought it was really tasty. I don't normally like wheat beers either, so that was quite surprising. Snack, I'm going for the Smofo beans because there's a kilogram bag that we've still got quite a lot of down there, and I probably could polish that off by myself. So
on the bus home.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for the Smofo beans.
I'm a bit torn beer wise, but I think, and this is really boring because it makes it a draw, but I think I'm going to go with the Tramlines beer. On the basis, actually, it was the least strong out of all of them at 3.8%, but I just thought really nice flavour, and I can picture myself in the sun drinking that in a couple of weeks' time. Looking forward to that. And for the snacks, I think I'm the only one that's going to go for the corn.
Super spicy.
Yeah, it was ridiculously spicy, and it's kind of difficult to see how you would pair that with a beer successfully. Yeah. But I just love corn. I get the little kind of packets of the the Grays ones that have got corn in. Just really like it. I love that crunchiness to them. I think they're
going to go under now. You've got this a kilogram bag, and where's all my £1 micro snacks?
So I think it's the first time we've actually had a dead heat. 2 votes for both the Brew by Numbers and the Tramlines Session IPA.
What's snack of the night?
If I have to pick between them, as if I give myself the deciding vote, given I didn't go for them, I would say that the Brew by Numbers I would probably vote for, just because it was so easy to drink
and you're not allowed to
super refreshing. But I do really like
the
Tramlines beer.
So we have by a nose we have a winner, and it is Brew by Numbers. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for your company this evening. Alex, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Tramline's a couple of weeks away. Head to the website if you want to grab some tickets for that. And keep an eye out for the first Hopcast Half Pint coming in the next couple of weeks. And we will speak to you again in August.